We talking rom-com, we talking action, we talking drama and movie classics. Whatever you want, yo, we have it. Cause we talking movies on the podcast. So I married a film critic. So I married a film critic. So I married a film critic. Hey honey, I just want to talk about the movie like casually. You don't have to bring up the cinematography. Honestly, let's just talk about like how the characters were fun. Married a film critic. So I married a film critic. So I married.
Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. We are your co-hosts, Julia
and Barry.
Hey guys.
Hey.
So this week, I decided that we would watch the 1987 comedy
Oh, man.
Over the Top.
What are the odds on Lincoln Hawks pitch?
20-1 pound, real long shot.
Hawks, let's go.
The world meets nobody halfway. Remember that.
I don't have a father, sir.
The world has always bet against Lincoln Hawks.
This guy's nothing.
Why'd you leave us?
It won't happen again.
I want my grandson found. I don't care how you do it. Do it.
But a winner never listens to the odds.
Whatever happens, I want you to stay with him. Where'd we end up?
Together is all I can guarantee.
You ain't got a prayer in Vegas.
You never had anything, so you have nothing to lose.
All I want to do is hurt him, cripple him, get him off the table.
All I care about is you. You're my boy, you understand?
The world beats nobody halfway. Now is the time to do for yourself.
I'm warning you.
Over the top, Dad! Over the top!
Sylvester Stallone, Over the Top.
I don't think Sylvester Stallone thinks it's a comedy.
Drama?
This is my Oscar movie. I mean, I thought I was going to get it for this one.
He probably did think he was going to get it.
I'm sure. Oh, yeah. It's all over this movie. No, I mean, this was at a point in his career where he wanted to be taken seriously as an actor, and you could really tell. I think he's trying to do Brando in this movie because, Brando is famous for, giving these really internal performances. I mean, let's just say, should we talk about the plot or should I just get into it?
Yeah. Let's briefly tell everyone what it's about.
Okay, well, let me get this one caveat out of the way because I know it irritates you that I was so fixated on it. But so Sylvester Stallone is playing Lincoln Hawk, even though half the movie they call it, I mean, it's a scene by scene thing. Sometimes they call him Hawks, sometimes it's Hawk. I don't know. So
Barry was obsessed with this, you guys.
I started taking a tally. I'm like, Hawk, scratch, Hawks, scratch. Yeah, I mean, I think what must have happened is they must have shot the movie and they're like, just make it Hawk. Like Hawks, plural, doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I digress. So Stallone plays Hawk and he's a truck driver. A long haul truck driver. All right. And his son is graduating from military school. He shows up unannounced to pick up his son. His estranged wife is undergoing a series of unsuccessful heart surgeries, we learn. She's basically in the hospital bed dying. She calls him and says, I need you to pick up my son. This is a chance for you to bond. And her son is this little spoiled brat played by David Mendenhall.
Well, let's make sure you mention that he's graduating from 8th grade, I think.
That's probably, yeah.
He's 12.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not 18.
Okay, yeah, So the particulars of it are very vague. I don't know if they cut it out or more likely someone who's the star of his own movie decided not to write it, but it's never established why exactly Hawk is estranged from his wife and why exactly her father, played by the wonderful Robert Loggia, has pushed him out, other than the fact that perhaps, I mean, I think it's a class thing. I think it's a money thing. I think it's, that
classic white collar dad hates his blue collar son-in-law.
Yeah, you're not good enough for my daughter. I think that's what it is, but because they never say it, it's really frustrating. And like listeners, I've been watching this movie probably every year since I was 10. I love this film, so I was really paying attention tonight, really looking for that strand, and it's not there. It really isn't.
Yeah, and so I should mention that I do also love this movie.
Yeah.
We have a very young, very attractive Sylvester Stallone.
And that's another part of the problem. Let me just get to it, because his character is supposed to be, in the eyes of all these rich, wealthy people, a miscreant, unreliable, and kind of a bum, kind of like a Rocky character. But like Stallone is gorgeous in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like Bruce Springsteen from like the Born in the USA album. That's what he looks like in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's clean shaven.
Yeah.
He's got great hair. His muscles are glistening.
Well, everyone's muscles are glistening in this movie. Even Robert Loggia's muscles are glistening in this movie.
A lot of oil happening.
So much oil in this movie. Yeah, and Alka-Seltzer too.
Yeah.
A sponsor for this film apparently.
Yeah.
So Stallone is like he whispers almost all of his dialogue in this film, which really frustrated me because I mean he's one of the biggest movie stars in the world. I don't know if I think it's an Oscar thing. I think he thought he was giving a character role. He's miscast, but there's a tenderness there that I really dig and that felt really unforced. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I don't think he's the right guy really for this movie. But
the movie he wrote for himself.
Yeah, I think like a character actor would have been a better choice, but because it's his movie, and even though he didn't direct it, clearly he was calling all the shots for this movie. He's kind of charming in it.
Yeah, he definitely is. Yeah. I mean, okay, so spoiler alert, we're going to give away spoilers from this 1987 movie. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it and then come back. But it's no longer on any streaming services that we've seen. We'll have to double check that.
Yeah, but I know as of right now that we're recording this, I mean, this is a very hard.
We own
movie
it
to
on
track
DVD.
Down. Yeah, so we had to take out the DVD from the box.
But we watched it with the subtitles, which I think was the first time we've had them on. And there are so many funny lines, just random people like talking about Lincoln behind his back. He goes to pick up his son
in the very beginning.
At the very beginning. And they're like, don't look at him. Who is that guy? Who invited that guy? I'm like, it's a graduation at a military academy.
I love that Stallone like wrote these little roles for people like, okay, so like you think I'm garbage, so I'm gonna give you your moment to shine, but like you think I'm trash, so that's your motivation.
Yeah, and then we meet his son Mike.
Yeah.
Who, I'm sorry, he is just the most annoying kid of all time.
I don't know. I think the script is the bigger problem. I think the kid is really going for it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies this movie wants to be like. I mean, it was said many times when it came out that Stallone tried to make this like Kramer versus Kramer with arm wrestling, which is hilarious.
Gosh.
But really there's I think really what Stallone was pulling from just a little bit of film history. There's a Wallace Beery movie called The Champ, and it was remade with John Voight and Ricky Schroeder called The Champ as well. Very similar film about a loser boxer and his son, and his son is like, "You're gonna do it, Champ. Don't worry, you're gonna win, Champ." And there's a scene at the end, spoiler, where the Champ dies. And he's like, "Wake up, Champ! Wake up! It's gonna be okay, Champ." That's like the end of the movie. It's heartbreaking. It's so devastating. So I think there's a bit of that. I think Stallone intended for this movie to be like that, but that's also one of the problems because. Just a little bit of context here. 1985, 2 years before this movie came out, Stallone was on top. Rocky IV and Rambo came out the same year, and he was just the biggest movie star on the planet Earth. The following year, he does a hard R movie called Cobra, and it's probably the most violent movie of '86. So then a year later, he's doing this movie. This was the biggest paycheck an actor had ever received at that time. I think he got $15 million for this movie.
For Over the Top?
For Over the Top, $15 million. And the thing is about this movie, like, it wants to appeal to both sides of his fan base, and it just can't. Because, I mean, how many times watching this do you think this is kind of a children's film? But then there's something kind of sleazy and gritty about this movie. So it's like
there's people, the arm wrestling circuit with all of these just blue collar guys and gals, and then you have the Robert Loggia grandfather character who's kind of a bad guy but kind of still loves his grandson, and he's got his minions, and there's car chases and a kidnapping.
It's gritty. Like it's odd because it feels like it could go either way, but it doesn't choose. So like it's very sentimental and sappy at times and corny at times, but there's other times where it's like this could be like a thriller,
and other times where you have people like, you're gonna eat shit.
Well, that's the villain. I was Rick Zumwalt as Bull. God, I love this character so much. Early in the movie, he's got the line, "You ain't got a prayer in Vegas." Oh, love it. This guy, and fun little historical fact. 2 years later, he's in the movie The Presidio. He's got a fight scene with Sean Connery where Sean Connery hands his ass to him. It's the best. Sean Connery's like, "You're not strong enough for the right hand. I'm gonna give you the left hand." He uses his thumb to beat this guy up. It's one of the best fight scenes ever. I don't know why this guy didn't become a bigger star. He's freaking cool. I love him in this movie. He wears that red shirt that says Blaster during the tournament. He's great.
Yeah, in this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to talk about the letters.
Please.
Because, we were talking about where this concept came from. And so what happens is Lincoln picks up his son from military school, and the headmaster basically says, you have to go with your dad. And he's like, who is this guy? I've never met him. And he gets in this truck and he says, sir, your truck is disgusting, and, all this stuff. And he's being a little brat. And he says, how come I've never met you or heard from you? And all of a sudden Lincoln goes, well, I sent you letters. And I just had flashbacks of...
Say, Mike, I've sent you hundreds of letters. You never read them? Like, I wrote them.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just thought of The Notebook. It's like, I wrote you every day. I wrote you every day for a year. So then we thought... I didn't get any letters.
I wrote you every day. And they're standing in the rain, the pouring rain. But fun fact, I hate The Notebook. But anyway.
Okay, well, and then I asked you, babe, if this is the first time that this has ever been used, and you said, well, I'm sure they used this concept in Harlequin novels
and soap operas. Yeah. I mean, God bless Sylvester Stallone if he came up with that cliche. But I gotta say, I think it's almost more interesting here because I can't imagine Lincoln Hawk pulling over his rig and like take it to, dear Mike, I hope you enjoyed the third grade. I remember when I learned to use penmanship myself. See, I'm using a pencil to write this letter to you right now. Okay, love, Dad.
Yeah. So you're just thinking. So he left his wife and kid for an unknown reason. He's driving around the country and he's sending random letters
every day.
Them.
Every day
not
he's
every
writing.
Day. He did write them every day.
It's true, but the
stack was small.
But he did say like 100 letters, and it looks like there's there's a montage. He goes through all these letters that his father sent him.
Yeah, but in how many years?
What was? And I gotta wonder, like, what is like? So, son, Reagan is doing a really good job right now. Like what is it? Like what is he talking to him about?
Yeah, I'm out here driving.
Do you like trucks? Because I got a truck.
I really miss you, even though I left you when you were 6 months old.
You see, son, the world meets nobody halfway.
Mike, I don't care what your grandfather thinks about me, okay? All I care about is you. Now, you lost back there because you beat yourself. You let yourself get beat. I know you can do it. You're a special kid. You're my boy. Do you understand? But you're also a spoiled, rich brat who's always had everything done for him. Now it's time to do for yourself, Mike, and you can do it. Because I'm telling you, the world meets nobody halfway. Do you understand what that means? If you want it, Mike, you gotta take it. Do you hear me? You gotta take it.
So Lincoln talks to Mike, and he keeps saying that to him, like, the world doesn't meet you halfway. You have to do for yourself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really
make any sense. Yeah, I keep thinking about that too. It's very wise to change the title to Over the Top, which is another bit of dialogue that keeps Although I love it. The one I love that Stallone says a lot is "Puppet Kid, Puppet, Puppet Kid."
Yeah, that's just kind of weird. But
not a good title.
The meet me halfway thing is funny because he keeps saying the world doesn't meet you halfway, and then they do keep meeting each other halfway throughout this movie.
This is a Stallone thing. Like, for one thing, a lot of his dialogue, it sounds like stuff he like probably says to himself while he's pumping iron in the gym. You know, he's a total gym rat. So I'm sure he's like, you know, bench pressing like his own weight and being like, the world don't mean nobody halfway. You know, and
he's like, wait, I gotta write that down.
Oh, that's good. Oh man. Hey, director, this is what I'm gonna say, because this is a keeper right here. This script, man, is gonna go over the top. You know, there's 10 years later, he does Rocky Balboa, Rocky 6. He has a monologue in that movie where he talks about how every man has one last fight in him, and it's a monologue that I know most men. It basically reduces most men to tears. It's so beautiful. I feel like he uses these movies to kind of build towards that. He's always, you know, there's always those Stallone-isms in all of his movies. So like this, you know, in Rocky 5, he spends most of that movie going, go for it, heart and fire, go for it. So I think this is another one of those like failed catchphrases that didn't make the t-shirt.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But so it just doesn't make sense. The song is great. No. The dialogue is silly.
Even over the top doesn't work. I mean, the movie doesn't really go over the top, really. I mean, I think, like I said, I think Double Elimination, which they say a lot in this movie, I think that would have been a better title.
Yeah, maybe.
Stallone, Double Elimination. That sounds cool. Doesn't say anything about what the movie is, but...
That's true. Well, and then he does, you know, go over the top with the arm wrestling.
Not with the acting, though. He's really underplaying in this movie. Everyone else is over the top. Everyone else in this movie is screaming and yelling.
Everyone else looks like they're high on coke.
Well, it was 1987, so that's probably... Yeah.
We agree that it is so ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, I gotta say though, that's one of the things, because like even talking about it, like I acknowledge how campy this movie is, but like the arm wrestling scenes are so exciting.
They are very good.
I freaking love the arm wrestling scenes in this movie. I told you this a couple years ago. Twin Peaks season 3 did an arm wrestling scene that I think is like the champion of those kind of things. But I've never seen an arm wrestling movie, and maybe for good reason other than this. I mean, these scenes are great.
Have you ever seen a truck driving movie?
A truck driving arm wrestling movie.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned while we were watching it, boy, does this movie romanticize truck driving. I mean, this is the life.
Yeah.
I mean, like Stallone is, you know, the truck is parked by the side of the road. He's sitting in the back of his rig. He's watching the sun come up, and he looks like the Marlboro Man. He's using every moment to like work out. This is a guy who looks like he hasn't left the gym, and he's so buff, but clearly he's using, you know, there's
a rig in his rig.
Yeah.
That he uses to pump iron for his right arm.
But just his right arm.
Just his right arm.
So I wonder, like, is it one of these things where one of these guys who works one side of his body out too much? But no, I mean, it's Lincoln Hawk. He's
proportioned.
Yeah, clearly he finds time to do crunches and everything else, and he goes to truck stops, but he still looks like, you know, he's on like a macrobiotic diet.
Yeah. Do you even know what that is?
No, I just threw that word out there.
Okay.
What do you know what it is?
No.
Okay. I assume Stallone is on it. So this is the start of Robert Loggia's run as a movie villain, which is interesting because most people know him, you know, from Dancing on the Piano with Tom Hanks and Big, but like he was a really subtle actor for years. Like he plays the one sane guy in Psycho 2, which is really saying something because most of the cast of that movie is chasing each other with kitchen knives. He got an Oscar nomination for Jagged Edge in '86, and he followed it up with this movie where he's super tan, oily slick, and screaming most of his lines. And it's like the beginning of like the Loggia run where like he was taking all these roles that I guess Christopher Walken must have turned down because like he made like a mini career of it where he was playing like bad guys in like Lost Highway, Innocent Blood. Your thoughts?
Oh no, I like Robert Loggia.
I like him too. Do you like him in this?
I mean, I do. I think he's great. The script isn't great. You know, it's a lot of everyone screaming. get me my boy back.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everyone wants this kid, and it gets a little weird sometimes.
The plot really, I mean, one thing, this feels like a first draft of a screenplay, and you know, Stallone co-wrote it with somebody else, but really, this is his screenplay, let's be totally honest. I think a better script would have eliminated Robert Loggia as a character and had Bull. I think what they should have done was have it that it's established that so Hawk has to connect with his son. Wife is in the hospital dying, and Bull is the new father. Bull is the stepfather. So the kid is torn between Bull and Hawk.
That is weird. No, that guy is crazy.
He's awesome. He's a cool villain.
No, he's
because
crazy.
At the end of the movie, Robert Loggia is just standing there like, okay, kid, I'll take you away. But first, let's see how this tournament turns out because I got $5 on Hawk. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for him to be just standing there watching the tournament at the end of the movie unless he's going to get up there and arm wrestle Hawk himself for his boy.
I know. It is a little bit strange because he spends the whole movie trying to find his grandson, trying to convince Lincoln to stay away, getting him to sign paperwork so he can have custody now that the mom's gone, and then bribing Lincoln with money and a truck and all this stuff. And then when he sees at the end that he kind of doesn't have a chance, he just kind of is like, oh, well, just walks away like, everything I just did doesn't even matter.
It's really lazy. And then there's a cutesy little moment at the end of the film where Stallone and little Mendenhall are trying to set up a sequel that didn't happen, even more over the top. And I gotta say, like, as I was telling you while we were watching it, I was really rooting for Loggia at times because Lincoln Hawk, like, I mean, he drives his truck through, I mean, not just the fence.
Through a gate. A fountain and into the front of Robert Loggia's house.
Into his house. It just, and I think Stallone must have seen the movie Shoot the Moon about a divorced father trying to get his way back into his child's life. There's a terrible scene in that movie where Albert Finney drives through like Peter Weller's house. It's an awful scene. I think Stallone must have seen that and thought, oh man, this would be wicked if we just did it with a truck. Oh yeah. Because, I don't know, like, and then he goes to jail. It's like, yes, that's exactly what should happen. He's clearly not a fit father if that's how he handles like the boy's grandfather, guardian.
Yeah, exactly. But he is so understated that you're never scared of him.
But I gotta say, like, the one scene in this movie, as a kid, it made me uncomfortable. It just never felt right. And even looking at it now, it's a terrible scene. It's the one where Hawk, he basically baits these kids at a diner to arm wrestle his boy. I hate that scene. And by the way, a bit of dialogue here that really shows like the direction the scene should have gone is because like. So Hawk and the boy have a meal, and they're really bonding at this point. And he's like, "You feel good?" And the kid's like, "Yeah, I feel great." He's like, "Oh, really? You feel really good?
Feel strong?"
Like, yeah, I guess so, Dad. I mean, can we go? I mean, this is a Denny's for God's sake.
Can we call my mom?
I mean, Mom is dying after all. Can we make a long distance phone call? Yeah, sure, but first let's do some arm wrestling. So he goes to so he finds some kids in the little arcade part of this diner, which used to be a thing in the 80s. And he basically has asked these kids if they will arm wrestle his son for money. It makes a big thing. And
he doesn't tell his son he's doing this. He's never given his son any arm wrestling coaching.
All. Yeah, there's no wax on, wax off.
He doesn't even tell him what over the top means.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah, so like and these kids, this boy in particular is a psychopath.
And they've known each other one day.
Yeah. So the psycho boy, the line that he throws out, and this should have been like a total trigger warning right here. The kid says to Stallone's son, he says, "Kid, if I couldn't beat you, I'd kill myself." To which Hawk should have said, "You know what? You're kind of a weird kid. Never mind. We're going to go. You're right, son. The world really don't mean nobody halfway."
Yeah, he says things like, his arms are soft, or his hands are really soft. Just like a girl.
Right.
I think he is a girl. I mean, the whole thing is...
Yeah, it's awful. It's a terrible scene, but like but the movie incorrectly uses it as this moment to show the boy and the father bonding, and it's like, no, like bond over the love for the mother. Don't bond over this really inappropriate moment.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's toxic masculinity.
Well, this whole movie is toxic masculinity.
Brute, it smells like a man. And now, Brute invites you to enter the over-the-top Brute sweepstakes. Win one of 10 Brute Dodge 4x4s. Entries where Brute gift sets are sold.
I mean, something I want to bring up because I thought it was fascinating. It's almost neither here nor there because the movie makes it that way, but there's a female division of the arm wrestling. This movie, for those of you listening to this who have never seen this masterpiece, it climaxes in Vegas with this huge, elaborate, slick, oiled up, all-American pro arm wrestling championship. I don't know if that's a real thing, but there's clearly a female division. And you have these quick scenes of these women arm wrestling. It's like, why doesn't this become part of the plot? If this movie really wants to explore this world of arm wrestling, which it clearly wants to fetishize, and again, it's very effective in that way. If anything, this movie works, it's the arm wrestling. So I was fascinated with that, and to see that again, a female division. There's a whole female arm wrestling championship bouts going on while Hawk and Bull and everybody else is going at it. And it's like, man, this movie really could have been a lot deeper about everything, about anything. But that was the thing. I thought, man, maybe she becomes the new, I figured Stallone would have been like, well, I need a girlfriend. So I should meet that chick over there. And I could teach her some moves. And I could tell her the world don't mean nobody halfway. And we could drive off in the truck together with the kid.
Okay, there really is a world arm wrestling league.
Okay.
And they do have competitions. So this is a thing.
What's the thing that cracked you up when all the judges came out? What was... Well, that was great.
It's the very final match. And they're like, and welcome to the World Arm Wrestling Championship judges. And they come out and there's 6 of them. Yeah. And they come out we are the champion kind of thing.
It is great. Funny. You wonder, what do they talk about? Hear ye. So we think that perhaps anybody like the idea of, instead of the motion of the hand going from right to left, it'll go from left to right. Any objections? No? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, talk about how the movie, when they get to Vegas, turns into a weird documentary style.
Yeah, that's weird.
With the camera, the characters talking directly to the camera.
That's something they should have went all in with from the beginning. They shouldn't have thrown this at, because it does feel like, okay, maybe it's just one moment where this is some interview stuff. No, suddenly the characters are facing the camera and just talking directly to some unseen interviewer. We never hear the questions, and they're obviously throwing out Stalloneisms. Clearly this is stuff that Stallone probably is okay, so I want you to say that the world is a cigar and you're just gonna bite it off and chew it. Oh, that's good. So you got these guys, and some of them are obviously personalities, and obviously all of them are bodybuilders, and they're just looking at the camera going, oh, I'm gonna tear him apart, but then
I just want to hurt him. I just want to hurt him and send him away. I just want to break his arm.
It's very similar to the WWF commentaries and interviews they used to do back in the 80s when Hulk Hogan was king, and that's the kind of thing that WWF was. But yeah, it's bizarre because it's a completely different movie. You do this, and they keep going back to it, and you wonder, is it going to end with some kind of narration? Is it going to end with some kind of postscript?
No, but talk about the hat.
Oh gosh. So Stallone, it's a motif that appears at the beginning of the film where not only, two things. Stallone has a very specific way of arm wrestling, and apparently, according to IMDb, I don't know how true this is, but apparently a real arm wrestler felt that Stallone stole it from him. You see it in the film multiple times where they're arm wrestling, Hawk will be losing, he does a little finger dance, and he basically rearranges the placement of his fingers
to be over the top.
Thank you. How could I forget that detail? And it's the unbeatable thing. It's like the crane kick in the Karate Kid. It's just you do that, you win the fight. Well, apparently, for one thing, a real arm wrestler's like, hey man, that was my move, and Stallone stole it. I don't know. But in any case, he does that from the very beginning, and also he does this thing where he flips his hat around, and to Stallone's shame, and it really is to his shame, he actually has a bit of dialogue. He's like, "When I turned that hat around, it's like I become somebody else. I become like this truck here, like a machine, like a truck."
Yeah, he says, "I become like a machine." It's like, okay, wow.
And again, like yeah, again, like I think his charm and I think the fact that he's playing a character who's kind of a tender lug, very Rocky-like, I think it's what makes the movie work. And again, like he is 100% movie star in this movie. He looks like Bruce Springsteen circa 1987. He looks fantastic. He's very charming in this movie. He's like, it's funny how quiet and subtle he is in this movie where everyone else around him is shouting and screaming. But at the same time, it's like, who is this guy? Well, it's a weird character.
I think the most frustrating scene for me is when his son Mike finally says to him, "Dad, why did you leave us?" And he says, "Well, I left for lots of reasons, and I'll always regret that." And he's like, "Well, that's not an answer." And he's like, "Well, I'm sorry I left." I mean, the son even says, that's not an answer. And he never tells you. He never tells the son. You never hear it from another character. So as an audience member, you're totally left going, why did he leave his wife? Every time he talks to his wife on the phone, who's in the hospital waiting to have surgery, he's like, "Hey, honey, how's it going? Oh, he's so sweet with her. She's a really sweet person. And he seems like a decent guy. Like, what happened?"
Yeah, this is funny too. I told you this a couple weeks ago. I was talking to my buddy Michael McCartney, name drop, and Michael mentions that Susan Blakely's in this movie, and I know her because of a film she did like back in the 70s. And he's like, "Oh, you've seen some movies she's done." I'm like, "Nah, I don't know if I've really seen. I don't really know her work that well." He's like, "She was in Over the Top." I'm like, "Nah, there's no women in Over the Top. Come on, man. Don't be silly. I've seen Over the Top." He's like, "No, man, she's like Stallone's dying wife." And I'm like, "Oh, that's right, the wife over the phone. Oh my gosh, I forget." It's again, it's one of these things like it's established in one line of dialogue. She's there for heart surgery. Apparently, it didn't go well. Whatever that is, but like, I mean, give us something. We have a wedding photo. We've got a couple phone calls where she's like, "I need you to take care of my son," and that's it.
Letters. His truck is full of photos of
that's the best
of his ex-wife now and Michael all over the cab of his truck.
All over, yeah.
So what? He just is driving this truck around the country, and he's got this sweet family at home, and we don't know why he left. It's infuriating.
That's definitely, I'm sure that was a weird thing for every hitchhiker. It's like, "Oh, is this your boy?" "Yeah, I've never met him, but I had pictures of this kid all over my truck.
I ride him every day.
I ride him every day. I never met him, but I got his pictures here. There's his kindergarten picture."
Yeah, it's very frustrating. If he had just fixed that detail, I think it would have made the movie even better.
Stallone has it in him. Like he has that sentimental side. He knows the formula and how to make the formula work. He made it work with not only Rocky Balboa, the sixth Rocky, which is, I think, one of the masterpieces of that whole franchise. But like he has it in him. He understands this formula. So it is strange that, again, like it feels like a first draft. It doesn't feel like a screenplay that should have went as far as it did. I think moments in this movie that are meant to be dramatic, I think those are the ones that are really shaky. But clearly, the whole thing of making this Rocky with arm wrestling, I think that's the greatest achievement of the movie. Yeah, whenever it stops to be dramatic and for Stallone to once again pontificate how nobody meets nobody halfway, I think that's where the movie really stumbles.
What do you think about the father-son relationship?
Because I don't mind David Mendenhall. I mean, for me, he looks so much like Demi Moore. Don't you think? He looks exactly like Demi Moore. So I thought, like, well, Demi Moore.
So funny because that's true.
Like, they should have cast her as the wife. It was 1987. She needed the work. She would have done this movie. Yeah, I don't mind him. Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, the kid is really like cutesy. I mean, he's like E.T. He's like all like eyes and smiles and I don't know. It's not a great child performance, but the kid is really working it, and Stallone is trying to meet him halfway. And unfortunately,
nobody does that. Nobody ever does that.
I think that's the thing. They get halfway to good. But when this movie is about the arm wrestling, the sweating, when they slow it down for slow motion, it's just that's when this movie is truly a masterpiece of its genre, the arm wrestling movie.
I don't know if we're convincing anybody that we actually like it, but we do.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to give it a star rating, because like again,
how many stars?
It's campy, it's very of its time. And as a work of drama, it is woefully underdeveloped. But as an action movie, a sports action movie, I think it's pretty wonderful. And I think Stallone, against his better judgment, did this film. But at the same time, I think there are things about it. That it's still charming. I find it very charming for the most part. So for me, it's out of 4, I'd give it 2.5 stars. I think it's a good movie. It's a guilty pleasure, but I think it's a little bit better than that.
Yeah, I give it 3 stars because of all the muscles. I'm just going to give it a 0.5 star more than you.
Well, there's so many muscles. I mean, and so many to choose from.
Yeah.
And Stallone, like, it's interesting because Stallone seems like, I mean, maybe this is where the casting works. All of the guys he goes up against in the Vegas tournament, I mean, they're tree trunks, and he's this little guy. But like when the matches begin, I mean, his guns are the biggest. No question.
They're coming out blazing.
Stallone's the man.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I don't know how this movie wasn't a huge hit, because it was a flop. This movie really stopped his momentum. I mean, like, even Cobra the year before, it was ridiculed by the critics, but it was a big hit. This movie, again, like, he was paid $15 million for this movie. It was a record at the time. The creators of the studio Canon, Menachem Golem and Golden Globus, they were the directors and producers on this movie. Like, this film was geared to be this gigantic hit, and it flopped really hard. I've never met anybody who doesn't love this film. Anybody who's seen this movie, like, oh yeah, man, over the top. And people dig this film. They dug it then, they dig it now. You know, if you talk about the Stallone movies that are, you know, referred to as stinkers or flops, like, this is one of those people, oh man, that movie's great. I love Over the Top. I grew up with that movie. There was a series of over the top action figures. These were weird because the right arm of them had this snap action so that you could have the two action figures arm wrestle each other.
Oh, wow.
And what it really was just a chance to break your action figures and having to buy more over-the-top action figures. But I remember buddies of mine had the over-the-top figures, and it was really cool because, like, it was the one arm had, like, this spring action thing going on. Like, man, that's pretty cool.
I want to find the Sly Stallone over-the-top action figure.
Oh, yeah. Well, we should... I mean, they still sell them on eBay. There's pictures of it. I'll have to show it to you.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, if you could change the ending of this movie, what would you want the ending to be?
You know, I think it's bad that the movie has two villains, and one has a lot of screen time, but he's not really... I mean, Robert Loggia basically just yells a lot. And then you've got the awesome villain, Bull, who yells even more, and he's more active in the movie, but he's barely in the film. So I feel like it really should have been about a family coming back together as opposed to it being this father-son thing, which doesn't feel balanced because Hawk is unstable in some ways.
Yeah, because there's a part where the son says, Dad, where are we going to end up? Because he's goes from being in military school and living in a mansion to now he's going to be on the road with his dad in a truck. And Lincoln just says, I don't know, but we'll be there together. I'm like, he's 12. He's 12 years old. He has to have structure. This is crazy.
At times it's established early that Hawk, after the first day of them on the road together, he pulls over and they sleep in the truck together. It's meant to be this tender scene, but it's kind of creepy and kind of sad too, that, you know, like this is, he thinks this is...
The first day he meets his dad, they're sleeping in the cab of his truck together.
And as you mentioned, Hawk won an impromptu arm wrestling championship at some Denny's somewhere. So clearly he's flush. They could have stayed at a hotel.
Yeah, he won $1,000 hours earlier and doesn't take his kid to like an actual hotel with a real bed. A 12-year-old.
At least a Holiday Inn. Come on, man. Anything. It's like, no, we're going to sleep in the truck today. I hope that's cool with you. He's like,
lots of truckers do it.
Yeah.
It's like the creepiest line of the whole movie.
I'm sure Stallone regrets that line now. And I know Stallone's, I mean, he's, you know, when they've interviewed him and they do like those inevitable career retrospect interviews, he's always been regretful about this movie. Like I remember there's one interview where he said like he really felt that the ending arm wrestling champion should have been more seedy, like underground, something kind of like
not a Las Vegas,
not like a
flashy,
slick, right? That it was too. They were clearly trying to make it like the ending of Rocky IV or whatever. But yeah, like this is one of those movies that it comes up a lot as like an embarrassment, and I don't think he should be.
No, I don't think you should be embarrassed.
There are movies he's done that he should be embarrassed about. I don't think this is one of them.
Let's name all of them. Just kidding. Don't
Stop
do
My Mom Will Shoot. Detox. No, I'll stop.
Okay, well, that is our review of Over the Top. Go listen to the Kenny Loggins song.
Meet Me Halfway, the love theme from Over the Top.
Exactly. All right. Catch you later.
Aloha.